Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the row that's blown up amongst Conservatives concerning balancing the books. So Conservatives that seemed delighted that Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, facilitated the shovelling of billions of pounds of public money into the hands of wealthy individuals who don't even pump it back into the British economy. So money that's gone forever. But they seem less keen on coming up with a plan to pay for it and have warned the Chancellor against tax rises. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we have the thorny issue of tax and spend dividing the Tories, as it often does, along with every other self-inflicted disaster. And this knotty taxation issue is self-inflicted. Because yes, what we're talking about is a large amount of spending due to COVID, but our spending problems are caused by three things that were all 100% down to the Conservative government. The first is that instead of growing the economy during the good times since the last economic crash, the Conservatives stunted our growth through their austerity nonsense. This meant that the national debt as a proportion of GDP remained extremely high. It has now gone over 100%. Unlike in Germany, where, for example, they shrank their recession spending debt over time and are now in a position where they've got it back under control and they can spend their way back out of COVID. And yes, their debt will go back up again and then it will come back down again and they will be able to manage it without piling on that debt to future generations. The second aspect is that when the government were told what they needed to do in order to prepare for the expected pandemic years ago, they failed to implement most of the recommendations. In addition, when the advice changed due to the slightly different nature of the virus in question, we were expecting a flu-based pandemic and we got a coronavirus-based pandemic. So when the advice was altered a little bit, they also failed to act quickly enough on that as well. And the third thing is the government insisted on pumping loads of money into inexperienced private hands rather than where it would do most good. So they needed to order a load of PPE. Did they order it really quickly from companies that make PPE? No. They gave it to people like pest controllers with no experience in these matters. Did they get the NHS to carry out COVID testing? No. They gave the money to an accountancy firm who then couldn't account for all the test results they lost. And I could go on. All these things directly contributed to the fact that now our national debt, which was well below 50% when they took over, is now over 100% of our GDP. And that debt needs managing somehow. Yes, there are countries who live with debts in excess of GDP, Japan being the most famous example. But why do it when it's not necessary? Because the more debt you have, the more debt you have to service. And then when you look at your tax receipts, that's a bigger chunk of your tax receipts that cannot be spent on public services. It's just spent on servicing the debt. So the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, wants to manage it through tax rises. Now, don't get me wrong, there are tax rises and there are tax rises. Some Conservative MPs are just calling on Sunak not to do it. I mean, sod them, they're just trying to avoid paying for their mess and heaping that debt onto the future. Presumably, when Labour finally oust these arseholes, which has to happen at some point, and begin responsibly managing the debt that they will have left, no doubt these same MPs who caused the mess will attack Labour for raising taxes to deal with it. But it has to be said, there are some Conservative MPs who may be talking some sense. Whether they'd back up that talk with their vote in Parliament is another matter, because after all, we've just seen the leader of the Scottish Conservatives saying that he would absolutely vote against any lowering of food standards after Brexit. And yet he had two opportunities to do that so far this year and perplexingly failed to do so. Sometimes Tory MPs fib. So, Robert Halfon. Now, he's a Conservative MP that, ironically, or coincidentally is what I actually mean, I was talking about yesterday regarding education. But he was also weighing in on the tax matter, and he said that he hopes that tax rises wouldn't hit normal folk. He wanted small and medium-sized businesses to be spared. He said, and I quote, "I have no problem with taxes going up for big business or multi-billion pound tech companies." Now, I can get on board with that. Only Halfon will be distressed to learn that these multi-billion pound tech companies will not only not be paying their fair share of tax, but actually going to have their taxes reduced. Because the government, Boris Johnson, who said that tech giants should pay their way, is scrapping the digital services tax. Now, this was supposed to be put in place and built up to the point where it would be worth about £500 million a year to our coffers. That's about 15,000 jobs on the national median wage. And in fact, actually, if you think it through, that's more jobs than that, because obviously if you employ 15,000 people in the public sector, they will pay taxes, and then those taxes go back to the Treasury. So you've got more money to pay more public sector workers. So in actual fact, it's more. And, you know, so we'd have, if we did that, you know, if we charged these £billion tech companies decent, we're not fleecing them, decent amount of tax. We can pay for more public sector workers. That's more people working, which is great. That's also more people paying tax. That's more people being productive, spending their money in the British economy. But no. Better to let those tech giants keep their profits, which will then be squirreled away well outside the UK's borders. That makes much more sense, doesn't it, Mr. Sunak? Now, he'd rather tax people who feel the pinch more keenly, because he's talking about, you know, removing the triple lock on pensions, things like that. But not only that, because, you know, he's talking about raising taxes on people who would spend those incomes in the local economy. Not people who are squirreling it away. We're talking about people who, as a result of tax rises, would not be able to spend as much. So that means less money being pumped into the economy. That means lower productivity for the country, and for his own department's tax receipts going down. Now, as long as my arse looks south, I will never understand how any chancellor, don't care about their politics, how any chancellor can ever think that it's better to give people who spend their money in this country less wealth, and instead funnel that wealth to people who will immediately move it out of the country, never to be seen in these shores again. But I'm not sure Halfon, assuming that he even means what he says, but I'll take him at his word for now, is in the majority in his party. Because many of the others weighing in are just opposed to the tax rising plans without any proposal of their own. They just go, oh, you seem to be planning this tax rise. No, that's bad. Oh, no, you're going to change your mind to this one. No, that's bad too. Okay, so what would you do? No, it's not my job to say what I would do. I'm just telling you what you shouldn't do. So Sir John Redwood, for example, all-round dickhead and poster boy of Tory sleaze, said, you cannot tax your way to faster growth. Which is an interesting thing to say. Does he offer up any evidence for this statement? Not really, no. And he certainly didn't suggest what he would do instead. He said, we need policies to promote more jobs and activity to get the deficit down. What a vacuous, pointless thing to say. You might as well have just said, we need policies that will get the deficit down. Just the last bit there. Yeah, we do. I would propose taxing so that we can afford more public sector workers. That'll work. Because, you know, one way of doing it straight away, like I said, taxing large corporations who are going to funnel that money out of the country anyway. Only what they should be paying. Like I said, I'm not talking about fleecing them, just making them pay what they should pay. Because at the moment, they don't pay proportionally what a small business pays. Because they do deals. And I don't know what we get out of this deal. What they get out of it is not paying any bloody tax. And we use the money to pay for more public sector workers. So, for example, we get more doctors, nurses, build more hospitals. That means we can treat people more efficiently. So that's not just more jobs in itself, because we're employing more doctors and nurses who will spend those incomes in this country. But we're also getting the ill and injured workforce back to work more quickly. Double benefit to productivity. Maybe we spend some more of that money on opening up courtrooms and clearing that backlog that's been building up for years. We can then get more people stuck in the justice system back to productivity as well. More money for education, giving people the skills necessary to create new opportunities for innovation. More skills, more engineers, drive our economy. We could actually get some world-beaten industries back again, you never know. I can think of lots of ways in which taxation can provide a direct boost to both jobs and productivity. I can't think of any policies that do that without involving money needing to be raised. And neither, it seems, can any of these Tory MPs who just go, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, without ever pointing at anything that's good. But there you go, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.